Rihannon Giddens is best known as the lead vocalist with US roots band Carolina Chocolate Drops. But she's just released her debut solo album, Tomorrow Is My Turn. It's a collection of songs that taps into the lost history of great American music. But Rihannon also covers songs by Dolly Parton, Patsy Cline and even Charles Aznavour. This solo album follows her work with Lost on the River, the new Basement tapes, the Bob Dylan project, which also featured Elvis Costello and Marcus Mumford. I met Rihannon to talk about her debut solo album and working with producer T-Bone Burnett. I started by asking her, how difficult was it to choose the songs for Tomorrow Is My Turn?
Well, it was hard to narrow down. I ended up with quite a long list, and I got the phone call from T-Bone Burnett to do this solo record, and I had this sort of list of songs that I had already sort of been thinking about that wouldn't fit in my sort of previous incarnation with Carolina Chocolate Drops, and so I sort of sent him the list, and he said, "That's great, bring them all," and I went. You know, there's one exception. You know, the Dolly Parton song is the one that he swapped out for one that a Dolly Parton song that he had always kind of wanted to see have another time in the spotlight.
Oh,
you know,
really? What Dolly Parton song did you originally want?
I originally wanted Gypsy Joe and Me, which is a very like ballady, rip your heart out kind of stomp on it song, and he said that might be a bit too. You know, he was right. He was absolutely right.
One of the songs on Tomorrow Is My Turn is Rihannon's version of Dolly Parton's Don't Let It Trouble Your Mind. But has the great woman herself heard it?
Not yet. I mean, this is the beginning. You know, I haven't been out with the record now. You know, this is my first day of doing promo. So I'm hoping, it would be amazing to someday get to meet her and shake her hand and, you know, have her hear this version of her song. I would love that.
And of course you've got Patsy Cline on there.
Mm-hmm.
Why that Patsy Cline song in particular?
Well, Patsy Cline is, I mean, you know, if you're into the older country music, I mean, she is the gold standard of vocals. But also, the more I did research into her, I mean, she's a really strong personality, and she treated her people really well, and she sort of stood up for, you know, what she thought, you know, in a time when a woman doing that was, you know, not a given thing. And I just was really impressed with just the whole thing, and you know, of course, the tragedy of her dying so young, but she did give us so many amazing recordings. And you know, I've always loved She's Got You as just a song. I just think it's a fabulous, well-written song, and it's not, you know, it's not the first one that pops into your mind when you think of Patsy Cline. You know, that'd be Walking After Midnight or I Fall to Pieces, and so I didn't want to go quite with the songs that were so identified with her. And it was covered quite a bit, She's Got You, at that time, so you know, it had other stamps on it as well as hers. So you know, I thought.
No, I've been changed.
Rihannon spends half her time in Limerick, where she lives with her musician husband, and her native Carolina. Ireland is her second home, and on her solo album she even tackles Black Is the Colour, but she had to rejig the verse so it would suit the colour of her husband's hair. He's a redder.
I rejigged, I actually rewrote. The first verse is a traditional verse, and there's a couple phrases that I stole here and there, but I actually rewrote all of the verses. And he was actually a redhead when he had hair. I mean, flaming red, you know. But it is, other than that, it is about him, you know. It became about him. That song it's kind of got a bit of tragedy and sadness into it, and the thing I loved about it was the passion that was sort of hinted in it, and so I just sort of took that an extra step, and I said, this is folk music, you know, greater people than I have done this, so I should be pretty safe in redoing these verses.
Tomorrow Is My Turn was produced by veteran producer T-Bone Burnett, but did he have any war stories about working with the likes of Bob Dylan and Robert Plant?
Well, I'm sure T-Bone has got loads of stories to tell. You know, when we were in the studio, it was pretty much working, you know, like 24/7, and I get really focused when I'm in. Especially this was such a big deal, you know. So I was like, I'm not messing this up. So I was super focused. So we didn't really, you know. And then after the session was over, I'm back to the hotel for sleeping because it's sort of exhausting. With the stories I did hear, you know, were because T-Bone was the same way. I mean, he was focused on what we were doing. But Jack Ashford, who was in the studio, and he's the Motown, you know, rhythmist, you know, the
Funk Brothers.
Yes, Funk Brothers, and incredible, you know, guy playing tambourine, and plays tambourine better than a lot of people play, you know, many other instruments, you know, incredible. He had some fantastic stories to tell from that time period, and he's got such a wealth of musical knowledge, you know. He'd be like, oh, the rhythm I played on that reminds me of, you know, some famous song from the 50s, you know. It was really, really cool having his energy in the studio, so.
This may be Rhiannon's first solo album, but the question remains, what exactly is going on with Carolina Chocolate Drops?
Well, I was in the middle of working on, you know, the next Carolina Chocolate Drops record when this sort of came in, and that's still on the docks for me anyway, creatively. And we've got a new lineup. We still have Hubby Jenkins, and we've got two new amazing, including a guy on cello who plays like crazy, and the other fella is a percussionist and guitarist, and now I've added, so what I've done is the Chocolate Drops, you know, are coming with me, basically. They form the core of the band, and now I've added a wonderful bass player and a drummer to do the solo material. So the shows will now be, we can do Chocolate Drops, we can do solo, we can do basement tapes. It's, you know, I'm really, really excited about it.
That you gave to me, and it's signed with love, just like it used